Welcome back to Ironsworn and Rime the Frostmaiden. This is episode 22. In the last episode, Karl found Brigid, his sister, in the clutches of Sefik Caltro, whom he'd also been hunting. Sefik was poised to sacrifice Brigid in the Stones of Thrun circle as a sacrifice to Arl the Frostmaiden. Sefik is a member of the Children of Arl, and this was part of his plan all along. Karl and Half came upon this scene. Karl was sighting down, ready to shoot Sefik when Sefik stabbed Brigid. Nonetheless, Karl managed to hit Sefik right in the throat, killed him in one shot, ran over to his sister, helped her, healed her, got her stabilized, and then she dropped a bombshell that she knows where their father is, who's been missing for more than a year. After we fulfilled our vow to kill Sefik Caltro, we got a weak hit, so we had something more to do, and that is to take down the whole Children of Arl network. So that's going to be one of Karl's tasks, but right now he's got his sister to deal with and all these other prisoners. So he picks up Brigid, tells Half, get these others free. We got to take them into town. And they escort these prisoners into Dugan's Hole and gets them set up with some locals since he has a bond with Dugan's Hole. And then the three of them hole up in an abandoned house and have a bit of time to chat and recuperate. First, we're going to Sojourn because Karl is awfully beat up and they have a bond. So a strong hit, we get 3 of these. That's great because we need to clear our wounded and shaken conditions. And we can get some health and some spirit from that. For our third, going to take a bit of supply so that we can head out onto the tundra. As they're sitting, resting up, Karl says to Brigid, what has been going on? We've been chasing all over 10 towns looking for you. What happened? And Brigid tells the tale. Tessa and I went out into the forest around Lonelywood as we usually did. We had to go further than usual. We were foraging for some mushrooms, and this woman walked up to us with this wild, crazy hair and this white fur coat, and she started talking to us, and everything got a little bit fuzzy. And Karl says, whoa, wait a second. Does she look like this? And he describes the woman in more detail. He's seen this woman before in the Frost Giant's Lodge, and has been suspicious that she's working behind the scenes. So he describes Revison in more detail, and Brigid says, yes, that's exactly who it was. Karl nods, like, okay, well, that's good. I've got a little more information now about who I'm hunting down. Brigid continues, so Tess and I were confused, but we knew that we had to get to the top of Kelvin's cairn, and so we went to Bryn Shander and Targos and met with some people who would be able to get us there, I think. Like I said, it's all very fuzzy. And then when we were on Kelvin's cairn, we were attacked by some creature, and after that I hit my head, and then I sort of woke up. But I slid down a crevasse and fell unconscious, and when I woke up, I was in a cage, and these gray-skinned dwarves had imprisoned us, and I'm not sure what they were going to do with us. It was me and some of the other climbers. There was also a Goliath who was imprisoned with us. And they started taking us out of their stronghold. Karl nods, is like, yeah, I found that stronghold, and we must have been right behind you. Brigid's surprised. She says, oh, wow, you've been all over. Well, on the way, wherever they were taking us, the Goliath and I got to talking. He introduced himself as Eglath, and I told him I wasn't sure what was going on. And then I talked a little bit about Lonelywood and missing you and missing our father, and told him a little about our father, and he said that he recognized this man. But before he was able to tell me anything more, the caravan got into a blizzard. We were attacked by some cackling hyena-shaped creatures. I think they were gnolls. Eglath tried to run away, but the gnolls captured him and took him off. I also tried to flee, and I got away in the blizzard, and I was wandering. I finally stumbled upon good mead, and there the folks told me that I could take the next cart of mead to Bryn Shander, and from there to Lonelywood. But the cart was attacked by that man. Karl nods. Yeah, Sefik Caltro. He's a bad guy. He was trying to capture and kill people all over Icewind Dale. Brigid kind of shivers. Yeah, he and some giants attacked the cart, and the giants took the mead, and he took all of us prisoner and dragged us here to Dugan's Hole, and that's where you found me. Karl nods, like, okay, that sounds terrible. I'm sorry. Why don't we rest up here a little bit? But it sounds like you have a lead on where our father Audun might be. So where's this Goliath now? Brigid shrugs. She says, the gnolls must have taken him. I think they must have taken him to wherever they live in the southern mountains. Karl is like, all right, well, we got to go after him. Karl turns to Half, says, Half, I know you've been with me this whole time. I want to know if you are willing to keep going with me. And we're going to test our bond now, because Half didn't really sign up for all of this adventure that he's already had, and continuing to scour Icewind Dale is not necessarily what he wants to do with his life. We're just going to roll heart. We don't have any bonus from Half on this, but we get a strong hit, which is exciting. We get a little bit of spirit, and we get some momentum. Half nods. He says, Karl, I'm with you. I'll help you and Brigid. We've got to find your father. Karl nods. He's like, okay, so we're going to swear a new iron vow. That's a strong hit, which is fantastic. They know specifically where to go. I think the most realistic is that Half speaks up. He's like, oh, I heard about some gnolls attacking in 10 towns, and I heard that they live in a chasm along the spine of the world. If we go to the foothills, we can hopefully pick up some tracks. And Bridge is going to come along. Now, in that downtime, we spent 10 experience to bump Karl's iron up to +3. He has been fighting a lot. He's been taking a lot of wounds. So I think that he's gotten a lot tougher. They are going to undertake a journey, leaving Dugan's Hole, crossing the tundra here towards the spine of the world. We're going to make this a dangerous journey. There's a lot of great wilderness encounters that are set up as random encounters in Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. So when we get a strong hit or a weak hit and get to a waypoint, I'm going to give us one of those encounters that is not necessarily dangerous or a fight, but rather something for the characters to engage with. If we get a miss, then we're going to potentially find something that's bad. On our first stage, Karl has the benefit of leaving from Dugan's Hole, and he has a bond with them. So we're just going to get that bonus and roll our wits. Weak hit, we mark some progress. We do burn up some supply, and let's see what they encounter. The party of Karl and Brigid and Half set out from Dugan's Hole, heading south towards the spine of the world. As they approach the foothills of these massive sheer mountains, they spot a small group of people coming across the ice, and they steer a little bit in their direction. It looks like it's a few hunters and trappers that have set up a little camp here. As they approach, Karl steps forward, says, hello, welcome. Would you mind if we share your camp? We have some trout to share and some firewood if you are willing to share company. And these folks nod and welcome them, and they sit down and get to chit-chatting. We're going to roll a compel just to see how friendly they are. All right, they ask something in return. I think it's going to be some supplies, so we're going to mark down our supply. And in return, they tell us potentially a couple of useful things. One, they say that there are these large winged birds with antler-like projections on their heads that they call peritons that swoop down from the mountains and attack travelers along the spine of the world. They also mentioned this thing called Angajuk's Bell, which is apparently a way that people can move across the sea of moving ice. Karl doesn't know if that'll be helpful. Hopefully they don't have to go out onto the water. That sounds dangerous, and it's also really far away. But now they know if they need to get out onto the water, Angajuk's Bell is a way to do it. We could make camp here. I think narratively it makes sense to make camp, even though our supply is quite low. We're going to give it a go. Terrific. We get a strong hit, so we get to take 2. So we're going to get our health up and our spirit up. I forgot that Half took quite a lot of injury, so we're going to heal Half as well. Wake the next day, say goodbye to the hunters and trappers, and now they've hit the mountains of the spine of the world, and they're going to head east, looking as they go for any tracks that seem like they belong to bipedal hyenas. That's a miss with a match, which is really bad. It just so happens that the book provides us with a couple of encounters that it labels as deadly. Since it's a miss with a match, I'm going to say that a blizzard kicks up as well, and that cuts the visibility dramatically. They can still more or less figure out where the mountains are and orient accordingly. They might get turned around nonetheless. As they're trying to make their way through the blizzard, kind of peering through the swirling snow, they see a crouched figure up ahead. Knowing that it's bad to be out in a blizzard by yourself, they slowly approach, and it looks like a man that slumped forward, and he's just sort of sitting there. Karl tries calling out, "Hello there, sir! Are you all right?" But doesn't hear anything, and he turns to the other two. "Do you think we should go investigate? Let's try to gather information." On a strong hit, as they approach this man, they see that he is frozen solid. They also see that the snow beneath him doesn't look like fully packed snow and tundra. And as they realize that, the snow shifts. They all jump back as something emerges from the snow. A truly gigantic white dragon lifts itself out after having been mostly buried by this blizzard. It shakes itself off. It looks around, and its eyes are cloudy white with cataracts. Karl and Brigid stay perfectly still and slowly start to back away. The blizzard, howling wind covers their retreat as this dragon looks around and paces off into the blizzard. That could have been a lot worse without that strong hit on gather information. But the three of them shake themselves off, and each are wide-eyed looking at each other, and they decide, you know what? Let's not continue to walk in the blizzard. They're going to go ahead and settle in and wait for the blizzard to blow over, and then try to undertake a journey again once the blizzard's gone. They don't want to randomly stumble upon a dragon. Once the blizzard passes and they reorient, they head on out and get a strong hit. So we mark progress, and let's see what they encounter. As the day starts to wind down, the three of them see a troop of about 8 short figures off in the distance. And as they approach, they see that it's a cluster of dwarves that look like they're hiking from the spine of the mountain in the direction of Kelvin's cairn and the chasm where their home is. Karl waves his hand and hails them. The dwarves obviously spot them, but don't really stop. Nonetheless, Karl leads the group on an intercept path and hails the dwarves again. One of them pauses as the rest of the troop goes on and says to them, "Hey, what you want?" We're just, actually, we're looking for something. We were trying to find some gnolls. We heard that they live in a chasm somewhere along the spine of the world. Have you happened to run into them? Let's do a gather information on this. All right, a weak hit. The dwarf pauses and halts the rest of his party and says, "Aye, maybe we have. And what's it to ya?" Karl's like, "Well, they kidnapped a Goliath who has information that we need. Can you please tell us where you found them?" Dwarf gets a speculative look and kind of eyes the three of them and says, "Aye, in exchange for some of that food you're carrying." Karl's like, "Okay, all right, that's fair. That's fair. We'll go ahead and mark off some of our supply and get some hopefully valuable information." The dwarf points off to the southeast and says, "Up there. When you get close, you can hear them cackling to themselves." Karl hands over some provisions, says, thank you, sir. Good luck on your journey home." The dwarf nods at them and then continues on. So they've got a good lead now, which is really helpful. I think that's going to give them a bonus on their next undertake a journey. That's a strong hit and another hopefully helpful encounter. Let's see what they get. The three of them head in the direction that the dwarf indicated, and as they do, they see from several hundred feet away a herd of reindeer with what look to be glowing blue antlers. They've never seen anything like this, but their food supply is actually getting pretty low. So this presents an opportunity. We're going to try to resupply by bringing down one of these and hopefully butchering it. Okay, that's a miss as rolled, but I've got enough momentum and we really need to resupply. So I'm going to burn momentum to turn that into a strong hit, which will give us +2 supply. So it looks like the herd starts to scatter as they approach, but Karl manages to refocus, sights down his arrow, and hits one of them right in the throat. It falls over, and they go over and rapidly butcher it, taking every piece of the animal that they possibly can, even skinning it. They can use that for some hide leather. So that's great. They marked progress and did a little bit of resupply. Now they're going to continue to undertake a journey. Another strong hit. They are getting close. I think with that, they reach the pass where they can hear echoing down from the mountains this cackling that the dwarves were talking about. So now they turn south and actually head into the mountains, trying to track down this cackling chasm. I'm going to go ahead and reach our destination, even though I haven't filled my progress bar yet, because they're getting a little bit impatient about getting there. Fortunately, that is a strong hit. We'll add the momentum, and the three of them get to the cackling chasm. The yawning chasm threatens to devour you as if it were a giant icy maw. The wind sweeping through the mountains can't drown out the inhuman cackling that echoes in the chasm's depths. The three of them approach this place, and first of all, Karl's going to scout this out. So we're going to gather information. The information complicates the quest. I think that they managed to find this entrance cave down into the chasm. They also look like they can go down the edge of the chasm. It's unclear really where they should go or where the Goliath that they're looking for is. Nonetheless, they're going to go ahead and creep in. We're going to face danger with shadow. On a weak hit, I think the thing that makes the most sense is suffering some momentum. They're going slow, picking their way carefully over this ice as they descend into the cave. At the south end of the chasm, humanoid skulls are stacked on either side of a cave mouth that contains icy stairs descending into the rock. Blood has been used to draw crude symbols on the skulls. That doesn't look good. They've already got their weapons out. Brigid, by the way, has an axe they managed to find for her in Dugan's Hole. She's pretty competent with it, just like Karl, because they are foresters. Descending the steps to a frigid 10-foot-high cave filled with a putrid stench. The mostly broken bones of humanoids and animals lay scattered on the icy floor amid bits of metal and torn strips of leather. Looks like this is where something's been eating people and animals. We're still being stealthy, so we're just going to look in the cave to the north and see if we can see anything useful. A crude stone altar with a mountain goat's bloody head resting atop it dominates this 8-foot-high cave. The floor around the altar is littered with animal bones, and there are 4 hyena-shaped humanoid creatures here that are staring hungrily at this mountain goat head. They don't spot Karl, though, so he slowly backs up, and they're going to go the other way. Entering into the chasm, they see 30 feet below the surface, a shelf of rocks surrounds the chasm's gaping maw, its cracked sides riddled with caves and festooned with sharp rocks. Farther down in the chasm, you see dead gnolls impaled on some of these fang-like protrusions. Manic laughter echoes through the chasm as you look around, the sound ricocheting off the walls that makes its origin impossible to detect. Well, it looks like there's nothing for it but to go around this rocky shelf. That is not going to be something that Karl likes. He really hates heights, so this is going to be a face danger with edge. On a weak hit, it makes sense. This is stressful. We're going to take the hit to spirit. Get a weak hit on endure stress, though, so he manages to toughen it out, and they get around to the next cave entrance. Painted in blood on the walls of this 8-foot-high cave are pictographs of a towering monster with sharp teeth that wields what looks like a 3-headed flail. Packs of hyenas feed on the corpses in its wake. A small fire crackles near the south wall, filling the cave with smoke. Cooking above the fire is a small green fish, while behind the fire, leaning against the south wall, is a blood-encrusted spear and a fishing pole, and also, rather importantly, a large, imposing, mean-looking gnoll. Even though they are sneaking, they only got a weak hit on their stealth, and this gnoll is a Fang of Yi Nogu, and therefore has access to mystical powers. So it senses the three of them and stands up and chatters something in some horrible hyena-like laughter, grabs its spear, and just charges right at them. We are going to run this as a battle. Half is weighing in. Brigid is also weighing in, but she doesn't mechanically contribute to the fight yet. She will soon, though. And a strong hit. We obtain our objective. This gnoll charges them with the spear. The three of them charge right back at it. And 3 against 1, this gnoll does not last long, even though it has some mystical powers. And they quickly drop it, are able to continue on their way. As they creep along the chasm, they spot what looks like a cage, and that could be promising. Before they do, they quickly peek in the tunnel to the left here. The strong scent of dirty furs fills this dark 10-foot-high cave. The stone floor has deep ridges where hundreds of clawed feet have scratched it. Gaunt, shivering gnolls huddle around a sputtering fire, cackling incessantly. These gnolls don't look like they're any threat to us right now. We're just going to leave them alone and go to this cage, which does, in fact, contain a Goliath. Situated atop the ledge is a cage made of thick timber beams and a bolted iron door and iron fittings. The cage is 5 foot on a side and 7 feet tall. Karl approaches the Goliath and says, hey, you want to get out of here? We're going to get you out. And the Goliath looks up in surprise. Brigid says, Eglath, remember we were imprisoned by those dwarves together. There's a brief glimmer of recognition in the Goliath's eyes, but he looks pretty downcast. He doesn't seem to engage. Nonetheless, they're going to try to break him out. This is going to be face danger with shadow. That's a miss, but I do have enough momentum to burn to at least get a weak hit, which is what I want to do. As they're trying to get this cage open, a couple of the gnolls come out of the cave behind them, and Karl gets kind of freaked out, takes a little bit of a hit to his stress, but they manage to stay silent and get the Goliath out ultimately. Freeing Eglath, they make their way back out of the chasm and down out of the spine of the world to safer pastures. Once they get somewhere safe, they get a chance to sit and chat with Eglath. Eglath looks at the three of them, says, "Thank you for freeing me. It is a great duty that you have done to me, and I wish to assist you. But before I can, I am fulfilling my own vow to my people, and I would beg your assistance in fulfilling it." Karl looks at the other two and looks back at Eglath and says, "If you can tell us where you saw Audun, our father, last, that we could hopefully find him, we will help you." He grabs his axe and swears it. This is going to be a pretty generic vow, help Eglath. We don't really know exactly what he wants from us. Maybe on our swear and iron vow, we'll get some information. No, not a miss. Okay, we'll take the hit to momentum. And I think that what Eglath has us do is journey with him to his home tribe before we could even begin to try to fulfill the vow. He lives in Sky Tower Shelter, so we're going to have to cross the mountains with him. That's going to be another journey that we're undertaking. Fortunately, we've got the Goliath with us now. We've got Brigid. We're doing okay. We should have sworn an iron vow to get this Goliath out. That was unwise of us. Oh well. Next time, Karl and Half and Brigid and Eglath will cross the spine of the world towards where the Goliath clans are and see what the problem is there and try to do their best to help. Thanks for watching.